Hey everyone, my guest today is Abubakr Ali. And Abubakr Ali is one of my favorite actors to just land on my radar because recently I had the distinct privilege and honor to see him in a play at Manhattan Theatre Club called Dakar 2000 and with Mia Baron, written by Rajiv Joseph. It is one of the most uniquely exciting plays that I have ever seen, in part because it is a two-hander being acted by two of the most exciting actors to watch on stage together. It's a love story, there's espionage, it's thrilling. It takes place on the eve of the world being terrified of Y2K happening. And it is so absolutely relevant because we feel now like we're on the eve of something very unknown in on the world stage. So, Abu Bakr, welcome to the podcast. I want to know, I'm obsessed with you. I want to know everything about you. And we're going to go way back in your life before we get to the present day of your life, which is doing this play, which is magnificent at one of my favorite theaters in New York, Manhattan Theatre Club. That's all people are going to hear from me for the rest of this time. It's all you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I like this is surreal talking to you right now because I genuinely I don't think you understand the magnitude of how often I listen to your podcast. Like I've gone back through the archives, just I have like a queue of things that are ready to listen to. So like just talking to you face to face and like actually getting to do this is crazy to me. When I saw your name in my email, I could not believe it. So thank you.
Oh my God. Well, what's thrilling is that obviously if you go through the archives, the first 100 episodes, the beauty of being my age is that I've worked with a lot of people. And so we go through this list of friends, and it
Mhm.
was thrilling to get to share them with the world because I love them so much. But the real joy is getting to meet new people through this experience and get to
Yeah,
hear stories that are not already familiar to me. So
yeah.
can you share a little bit about where you grew up, who was in the house you grew up in, performing, how did that kind of come into your life, or even the idea that this could be something you could do not just in your basement, with
Mhm.
friends.
Yeah.
Can you just give us the Abu Bakr TED Talk?
I can. I
Thank
definitely
you.
can.
Thank you.
The exciting TED Talk about. Yes, I was born in Cairo in Egypt, and my family. You know what's funny? The short version I always tell people is I moved to the States when I was 9, but the reality is I was born, and then from when I was maybe like 2 to 3 years old, we were in the States, and then from 3 to 9, I was in Egypt. So I pretty much kind of as a child was in Cairo, and then we moved to LA, where I was there through high school, and did all that. And yeah, I guess I like stumbled upon the whole acting thing. So in high school, I signed up for a drama class just to like just to like make my application look good because I was like thinking about maybe doing film school.
Right.
It was either going to be an archaeologist or a film director. It was one or the other. So I was like, I'm going to buff up the resume for both of them. Um, and I did a class, and then I had a teacher just like he pulled me aside one day, and he was like, "You should consider pursuing this professionally." And my impressionable young 16-year-old self was like, "Sure, why not? Let's."
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'll do it. But fuck it. Can I curse? Can I curse on this? I can curse. Yeah,
You can, but only
okay.
you.
Only me. Great. That's how I like it to be. um,
Wait, can we go back? I want to just like pause the creative arts in your life, and I love the teachers in our history that kind of saw us and saw a little sparkle in us that maybe in our household got overlooked or wasn't prioritized. First of all, what's crazy is my sister is in Cairo right now, just random little known fact. And so
wow.
she's
Okay.
been sending me, and then Luxor, and then on a boat going down the Nile as we speak. So Egypt is a place on a map to me that I have not spent time in. And so the idea that like my beloved sister is basically in your hometown right now, and it's just been so on my mind, like everything happens for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's this symmetry in the world. So how much do you remember, not just from photographs, like this is me as a little kid in Cairo, how much do you remember of your life there? And can you talk a little bit about your memories of coming here? And do you have siblings? Tell me a little bit about how you went, if you don't mind. Can
Yeah,
you
yeah, of course.
talk a little bit about that journey as you
Yeah.
recall it?
I mean, I remember all of it, to be honest. I remember, it was like a formative time in my life. It was me. I have one sister named Sarah, and my parents were with us. We lived on the 10th floor of this building overlooking kind of a big garden. It was called, like, in Arabic, it translates to the National Garden. So that was kind of where we were. And we moved, I mean, like, we moved to this country. The thing that was happening at the time in Egypt, and it was kind of what led to the revolution and all that, was that it was hard for people to find like upward mobility, hard to find work. And I think my dad was able to find work in the States and kind of maneuver different jobs while he was here. So he was actually going back and forth between America and Egypt while we were still there. And I remember he would always bring us like Disney movies. Every time he would come with like a new batch of Disney movies, which was kind of our favorite, thing to get when he'd come back. But yeah, we moved all of us eventually to the States, and that was hard. That was like a really difficult transition for me, just because it's a different world. I mean, like when I got out of the airport, the first thing I said when I got out of the plane, we were on the streets. I was like, "Wow, these streets are so clean. What an odd thing." Um,
And ironic now, if you think about it.
I know, yeah, yeah. Now I'm in New York. I'm like, these streets are fucking disgusting.
What's the opposite?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. But no, it was a tough transition, just because, like, in my brain, because I'd grown up with so much American media. I thought I came to the States. I hopped off the plane. I'm like, I'm coasting. I'm here. I'm one of y'all. Like, I'm chilling. But it wasn't until I kind of started school where I realized how different I was to the kids who were there, and I didn't even know I had an accent at the time, and I was made fun of for that. There were so many different things that I was just kind of gradually catching up to when we came. Which yeah, which was harder. And then September 11th happened, so that was a whole other kind of big thing that kind of was a big shock to the system, coming from Egypt and growing up in a Muslim household and doing all that.
Wait, so you came to New York or you went straight to LA?
LA, we went to LA. New
So,
York was for college.
okay, that's grown up you more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's mature
Or
adult
you,
me. Yeah, yeah,
which is all of 5 minutes ago.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so that is very, first of all, I like the idea of Disney movies being sort of the when you think back to, like, I'm sure those are your favorite movies to this day, like
Yeah,
those
of course.
things you watch as a kid. Were you
Yeah.
like High School Musical, Abu Bakr? Like, what was your, or not so much that, or
you know,
more
I
like Toy Story and like that world of
the
movies?
latter. I mean, we love High School Musical. There's a soft spot for High School
They're
Musical
not
always.
monsters.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. No, no, yeah. We're all human beings. We all have souls. But no, yeah, I love, like, the Pixar world was like my thing. Tarzan. I remember I watched Tarzan like 6 times in theater. There was it was is that kind of era was the thing that really stood by us. And yeah, that was kind of the gateway into American culture.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you go back and forth at all? And did you have other family here? Like, you get here, you're
Mhm.
this Egyptian family, you, Sarah, your parents.
Mhm.
Do you have a community immediately of other Egyptians who have moved to LA? Like, what's the touchstone?
Yeah, when we moved, we stayed at who's now my best friend, but my best friend's parents' house. We were there for about a month, kind of living with them until we, got everything together. So we kind of started there, and then obviously, you meet people as time comes along. You grow community, you find your own giving community. But we moved here, and it was just us. The whole rest of my family is not in the States. Which was hard. I think, like, it was so funny. So you were asking whether I go back very often, and I didn't go back for maybe 8 or 9 years after we moved here. And I'll never forget this, actually. The first time I went back, we went back to the apartment that I grew up in, which we still have. I went back to the apartment right before my flight was happening. And I walk in, I'm walking through the apartment, and I just start crying like uncontrollably. And I can't even explain it. There was no explanation behind it. I just kind of start losing it. And I'm supposed to fly that night. So we're just stopping at the apartment for a quick stop. My whole family's seeing me. They're like, we can change your flight if you need. Are you okay? Are you okay? And I just had to be like, no, no, it's just energy. It's energy. We're just releasing energy. It'll figure itself out. But it's interesting, like how that move, that change, stays within your body without you even being aware of it.
Right. And you were having this release.
Yeah, yeah, which I didn't expect. Like that had never happened to me. I was walking through the apartment looking through like toys and different knickknacks that I had when I was a kid, and then it just started. I've never experienced something like that to this day, and I've dealt, like my father passed away. I've gone through a lot of different things,
Yeah.
and that was the first time where I was like, wow, I cannot explain what this is. It's just kind of happening.
When you were in, I know you went to drama school where you're like, wait, I'm going to try to manifest. Like when you've had those things and they're like, well, think of like a really emotional thing. And you're like, I can't, it's not, I have to, I'm not
Yeah.
that.
No, no, it's not me. I've never been that. I wish I was. I wish I was the person who'd be like, dead dog, done. But I've always kind of been. I don't know what I think I just kind of jump in and play. I've never been a. I can't do that whole situation.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
it'll
clearly,
fuck me up too much. I'm
yeah.
too sensitive. I'll get fucked up for the rest of the day. I'll be in a bad mood. It's not worth it.
And also it's like, but that's the fun of being an actor. You get to have other people, like it's other experiences. Like if I wanted to dwell in my own experience all day, I could, that's a whole different pathway. And
Yeah.
I think the beauty can also be, I mean, there's a million ways to access emotion, but and we'll get to your play, I feel like when the writing is great,
Hmm.
like when the writing is great, it actually does all the work for you if you
For
can
sure.
be present and experience it rather than dredging up like horrible, horrible, painful.
Yeah, yeah, and I remember when I was an undergrad, that was always because I'll be very honest with you. So like I used to be very, like, as a person, closed off, very kind of like tight, very hardened. I think, and it was it was through different experiences in life and da da da. Da. But I remember in like trying to open myself up as a person for this art form and to be in learning through classes like, oh, you need to
Right.
be open, you need to da da da, you do all that. um that was a big conversation in my mind. It was like, okay, do I think of something sad? How do I do this? But it was, over time, I've found and I've learned that the more you can kind of be open to empathy and be open to the human beings around you and present with the people you're talking to and just kind of allowing those things, that those experiences in your life are, they're in your body, and that the availability to those, feelings, to those modes of expression will always be there as long as you're just kind of, empathetic and open to the people around you.
But I get it. I mean, I can't pretend at all to understand your life experience,
Hmm.
but I know having a lot of friends with stories that are similar and completely different than yours, being
Hmm.
here in a post 9/11 world, it
Hmm.
you are very guarded and very protected and just
Hmm.
wanting to present a certain
Hmm.
way. And
Hmm.
it creates a false narrative about who you
Hmm.
are because it only allows one to present one part of your
For
humanity
sure, for
instead of
sure.
the whole person who has every kind of feeling.
Yeah, it's so crazy hearing you say that. Like, I said this in so many interviews. Like when people ask me, like, "Oh, why did you want to become an actor?" Da 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 da. And it was kind of that thing you were just saying in terms of, growing up. I was in a space where like you could only really show one side of yourself, which is like the very smiley, like positive, non-threatening ass. Any room you walked into, you had to let everyone know, like, I'm not one of the bad ones. I'm
Right.
not gonna quote unquote blow you up. Like, I'm not gonna do these things. And I think it was this space of the thing that we do where those other two-thirds of your humanity could be revealed, could be celebrated, could be allowed to just simply exist in space.
Were those conversations that your parents had with you as people wanting to protect you, or was that instinctual? And I know this is a long time ago now, and you were
Yeah,
little,
yeah.
but sort of, do you recall those being conversations, or you just like scanning a room and going, "I'm going to be this guy for this room."
It was instinctual balance. So it was a mix of obviously just being wary. But I think that this, once September 11th happened, I think everyone had this knee-jerk reaction of like, we need to like let everyone know that we're not the bad ones. And I think it was also just experiential. Like I remember there were I'll never forget it. There was a time I was with my mom in a supermarket, and a guy stopped her to like ask her about her hijab and to kind of like keep inquiring about that in kind of an odd way, in a way that wasn't like coming from a space of generosity and curiosity. It was just from a place of picking. And I think seeing those things really instilled this sentiment within myself that I had to, in every space, be the best version of myself that I can be, which at the time I thought was like this smiley, positive, exuberantly kind version of myself, which I've learned over time is not the case. I think the best version of yourself is the full version of yourself that allows everything to exist.
So you went to NYU,
For my undergrad. Yeah, yeah.
and had you lived in New York before you came to college here?
No,
Okay.
no.
I assume had you been? I mean, did you tour it? Had you come to like see
Okay.
some shows? What was your relationship to New York before moving
Yeah,
here?
yeah. I came for a weekend where what did I do? I came, it was like an NYU welcome weekend. And then I saw, because I've always been the biggest Nathan Lane fan. I saw Nathan Lane in Waiting for Godot. That was like my, I'm going to see a Broadway show. I'm going to get to know New York. I'm going to go to Times Square. That was kind of what I ended up doing. But I'd never gone to New York. But it's funny, like in terms of like moving from Egypt to here, I found New York was kind of the perfect middle place because Cairo's like the craziest city in the world. It's a wild place, crowded, loud, never sleeps. It's New York times 12. So New York was kind of the perfect middle place I found between LA and Cairo.
Do you remember, and it's okay if you don't, do you remember what you wrote your college essay about?
Do I remember? I don't
Okay,
at all.
that's
Yeah.
okay. Um, do you did you have to audition to be an undergrad? I forget, to be an undergrad theater major, do you audition or do you just apply and then choose what studio you want to be in?
It depends on the program. The NYU, I did have to audition, but I think almost most of the programs you do have to audition. Yeah, it was an audition process. And yeah, I mean, it was very, at the time, it was such a big, important deal in my head. But I don't think it was like that difficult. I'm pretty sure they take like 400 people for the
They're like,
undergrad for.
would you like to pay to come to our college?
Yeah, it's literally it's like if you can give us money, great, come on in.
You're
You are
very
welcome.
talented.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you will have a career. Um, but I do remember the audition process for it. I remember it was like at an airport in LA. I remember stressing about it all. I remember, thinking I was hot shit doing like Hamlet and like banging my fists on the floor. It was its own thing.
Do you start building community at that time for yourself as an artist? Are you a loner? Like, what's your vibe when you first get to school?
A good question. I don't know. I've never even talked about this. I was kind of a loner, to be honest with you. In hindsight, I really was. I think, you know, uh, I was dealing with so many things. I was like getting over someone. There was all these little teenager things that were going on in
Romance
my
thing.
birth. Yeah, exactly.
Like important
Um,
things.
yeah, yeah. At the time,
Yeah.
yeah, and at the time they were huge. But I was kind of a loner. I worked really hard for my classes and kind of did as best as I can within that world. And then anytime I had time off, I would literally. I remember this though. I would go on walks with my headphones in, playing music, and just walking through the city, or I would get up at like 6 in the morning regularly to go wait in the rush lines for theater. So I saw a lot of theater when I was in undergrad. That was kind of that was the bulk of what I did. I wasn't much of I didn't like party or anything. I was
You were
kind of a
so
loser.
chill. Do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
remember what the soundtrack was like the to your
It
New
was
York?
like it was like fucking Sarah Bareilles singing Gravity on repeat. It was just sad, sad, sad boy music.
Did you see Waitress?
No, it's fun. I had like a National Theater Live membership that I just ended like a week ago, and they were just starting to air her in it.
So funny just thinking about the music and you'll hear that song today and it'll put you right back to like exactly like
I
walking through
know.
Washington Square and just
Yep.
being so you're having a very remarkable career for someone who has I mean, I guess people do say like there is something to be said about going to one of these very prestigious grad schools. It does sort of create some sort of idea about you within the industry, even if you don't feel that way about
Mhm.
yourself.
Yeah.
And did you do the thing where you went to undergrad and then went right away to grad school, or did you go like, let me just try it out for a little bit, like not being a student?
I took a few years in between, which I think in hindsight was the best thing in the world, just because I was able, I think if I hadn't taken that time off, I would have gone into school, into grad school with this mentality of like people pleasing, teacher pleasing, and just trying to like, make the teacher happy. And I think being out in the world, it just allowed me to develop an approach and develop a way to work. Um, so my classmates make so much fun of me for this. One of our first classes was in front of Ron Lu, who was like the head teacher at the time at school. I remember I was like having a panic attack on stage, and eventually I broke. I was like, Ron, I just have to fucking say this. I can be in front of whatever the fuck casting director and whatever the fuck my classmates make so much fun of me for this. That's exactly what I said. I can be in front of whatever fucking casting director in the world, and I'll be fucking fine. I will not give a shit. I'll be okay. But for some reason, when I'm in class with a teacher, especially you, I'm freaking the fuck out here, and I don't know what to do. And it was interesting to just kind of clock that within myself and
Well, what
eventually
was the
let that go.
reply? What was there a response to that?
I think he just laughed. He's the most generous person in the world. He laughed and he said, we're all working together here. Who gives a shit? And once I clocked that for myself, I was able to let go of all that, teacher pleasing
It's
shit.
funny because you described yourself earlier as sort of holding your cards closer to your vest, as it were. And
Mm.
so the idea that you were able to just go, wait, I have to stop and I have to say
Yeah,
the truth out loud, and it may have some curse words in it.
yeah.
Uh, how liberating.
I know. It was the first day of class, which was genuinely was probably the stupidest thing I've ever done. But it really it allowed me to create the space for myself to kind of do whatever I need to do to grow.
Rajiv Joseph, I just think he's an extraordinary talent as a writer,
Amazing.
one of our greatest playwrights. And I mean, he writes for film and I mean, he writes for all sorts of things, but he really is just such a wordsmith and really understands story, plot, structure, and dialogue and like human like the idea that he can sort of keep all those balls in the air and juggle all of them and create this play you're doing now. It is amazing how quickly we know who these two people are. Not that they don't have secrets and
Mhm.
pasts and dreams, and even secrets with each other, but I feel like there's this way in which, I mean, you get to do the thing that's really fun and really scary at first, and now I'm sure really fun because you've been doing it for a bit, which is direct address the audience immediately, and you're our narrator, and you are introducing us to you at the same time.
Mhm.
Now that you've been up and running with the show, is that the most fun to kind of start a play like that?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's so funny. Like as the process was happening, it used to be the scariest thing in the world. Just because a new play process, we're always trying new things, new monologue. There were so many different kind of iterations of those monologues, and for the first maybe 2 weeks of previews, every time I was up there was just abject terror. You're just trying to survive. Like truly, you're just trying to make it through. But now it's fun. Now it's fun to kind of have those conversations with the audience to gauge kind of to gauge. It's funny, like because those things start the play, it energetically can veer the play in any direction. So it really is a very what's the word I'm looking for, like tender navigation
Yeah.
of the text with the audience, because I think if you take it in any way, it could really adjust the course of the play, especially with a two-hander, just because you only have two people that the audience can have a relationship with. um but it's fun now. It's a good time right now.
And also, like I've worked at Manhattan Theater Club. They definitely have an audience that remember that time in history.
Yeah,
Generally, those are the people who come, uh,
yeah, they do.
as opposed to your friends and peers who would have to look at the author's note to kind of know.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's
did
funny. Yeah,
you
Rajiv
know
did
where?
go
Wait,
ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
I was saying Rajiv did a great job in terms of, that was a big thing with the play, in terms of setting that context. That context did used to not exist in the play, and we clocked. Oh, there's a good chunk of the audience that has no idea what Y2K really was, and
Right.
he wrote that in there.
Yeah, yeah. I just thought that was funny because at the audience I was with, I was like, oh no, they know. Their dementia may have kicked in and they don't remember. They definitely they definitely lived it. Um, Tell me about I was listening to sort of all the press stuff that you guys did and your director May talked about how um you guys have really someone asked her about casting. She's like, actually, these two actors have been with this piece for a long time. It's not like they auditioned, we rehearsed, and now we're putting a play up in a month. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the great pleasure and scary parts of working on a new play. I mean, it's just the two of you. It's you get no break. It's not like, oh, good, I'm not in this scene.
Yeah, yeah.
I can go look at Instagram for a minute. Um, Talk about the development of this. How did you, even though you didn't have to audition to do it in this current state, how did you get involved with this project?
Um, it was kind of the greatest, most random gift of my life. I was doing a show at Second Stage called Toros, written by Danny Tejera, and Rajiv had come to opening night, and I met him and I freaked the fuck out. I panicked because he's a player that I had known and looked up to since I was like in high school. He saw me in that, and then they asked me to do just like a 1 day reading of it. Which I mean, you know how these 1 day readings go. You show up, you're kind of like you come in, you got your coffee, you're half asleep, you're just kind of reading the play, you're getting the words out just to kind of see what it is. Obviously, for me, I was freaking out because it was Rajiv Joseph, so I read the play the night before. I was like, I'm gonna make choices. I'm gonna have intentions in these scenes. We're gonna do the work today. Um, and we did the reading, and I bombed. Like in my brain, I was like, I think that was, I left. I called like 7 different friends, telling them, "Hey, I'm pretty sure I bombed that reading. What an embarrassment! This man is never gonna want to talk to me again. Rest in peace, my career. I'm done." Um, and then they reached out, maybe like a week later, offering me to do the production like 9 months down the line. Um, and that was it. It was truly the most random, most wonderful little gift. And for me, it was a no-brainer to do it. It's Rajiv Joseph, it's MTC, it's a two-hander, um, and it's kind of been amazing seeing him like right through that play because there have been so many iterations of it, so many different versions of it, and all in collaboration and conversation with us and May. I mean, there used to be like a version where she was like bleeding through her eyes. There were so many different iterations
Like
of it.
in like a magical sort of way, or she
Yeah, and
bleeding?
like quite literally bleeding through her eye. It's kind of wild when I think of how many different versions there have
Iteration.
been.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of been incredible because you're watching a master at work. You're kind of watching someone who's at the top of his game, be in conversation with other collaborators, other artists, and trying to tell the best story that he can tell from a very personal place to
Yeah, I mean, I know he had been in the Peace Corps, and your
him.
character is loosely based on his being a young knucklehead,
Yeah.
trying to save the world and not quite knowing how to tie his shoes yet, which is just true
Hmm.
for all young people. Have you been to Senegal? Have you traveled in that part of the world at all?
No, not at all. I wish I did. I honestly, I wish I did before. I think it could have been really just fun, and not even informative. I think just really fun to kind of see everything. But we've seen so many of his pictures. He has so many pictures from that
Wow.
time period. So to kind of see his experience there was really just joyful.
Um, there's also this, without giving too much away, there's a high-ranking State Department official played by Mia Baron who
Hmm.
comes to you, an adorable young volunteer who is really trying to do good in the world. It's also set up at first in this wonderful way. Like it turns out everyone is sort of who they say they are. We just go on this ride where we're like, wait, are they who they say they are? It's
Hmm.
interesting, which is like life. We are who we say we are. We don't know who we are, so what we're saying is irrelevant. But there's also a love story between a younger man and an older woman in this
Hmm.
play that is teased to a certain degree.
Hmm.
And I wondered in watching it, having like a younger son, thinking how he would handle being cast in something like this. Was that something that you guys dealt with by just joking about it or just jumping into it or just falling in love with each other in doing the work? Was there an intimacy coordinator, which is a big part of rehearsal now? Can you talk a little bit about the delicacy of or the delicateness of that part of the play?
think we kind of had to approach it from a place of, like you said, like falling in love with that person. And it's not to say that it's a story about them falling in love or anything like that. But I do think, for me personally, and I think Mia would agree, we had to kind of let go of the aspects of like the age difference between these characters and what that insinuation could be. And we just had to trust that whatever story is told, it will happen from the audience perspective. All we have to focus on is what is happening between these two human beings at the end of the day. And I think, thankfully, because we've done the workshops together, and Mia's such like an incredible actor and a generous human being, we were able to we've really grown we've grown a lot of trust together and a lot of caretaking. We take care of each other every show, which I think has helped us kind of deal with those things and deal with various audience reactions, deal with different experiences that people have of the story without getting caught up in the macro. I think it's been really, especially with a two-hander, to focus on the micro and what's happening between these two people. What is the situation? What's the relationship? What are they, what's the interaction happening? Then the audience can deduce whatever the fuck they want to deduce.
Right. And are you still now this long into the run running lines together before every show, or have you been able to just put your script down? Are you still looking at your script before every show, or are you now like just hanging out backstage, having some coffee, and when they call places, going to places?
Go. It depends on the show. In general, right now, as if I would say, as of 4 shows ago, when things have been kind of locked, I'm able to kind of relax a little bit.
Yeah.
But me and Mia today, because we had a day off yesterday, we're meeting early to run the lines. Because it's funny. The thing we found is the second you kind of feel comfortable in this play, the second you're like, wait a minute, what's the next thing? What's happening? So you kind of it's a constant navigation of those feelings. I'm sure in a week or two, then we really won't have to worry
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
anything. But it is still fairly new for us. So yeah, we're down. I mean, we're running lines today.
It's so good. It's
Yeah.
so good. You have had some huge highs and kind of crazy, you've had some big highs and lows
Mhm.
already in
Yeah.
sort of huge jobs happening and then strange things happening after
Mhm.
the completion of the job.
Mhm.
Um, what if you could kind of look back to, I mean, you've been doing this, how long has it been since you got out of Yale?
It feels like it was like 2 years because of like all the world shattering events that have
Yeah,
happened. But
we lost
uh,
time, everything paused.
I know it was like the blip from Marvel. It was I graduated in 2019.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then in March 2020, I was doing a play at Manhattan Theatre Club and we shut
Mhm.
down. Um,
What was the
and
play?
it was called The Perplexed. It was a Richard Greenberg play, a
Oh
new
shit.
Richard Greenberg play. It was so, I loved working there. I loved working there.
Me too. Me too.
Um, I always feel like I'm coming home. And also, you rarely got to, you rarely get to sit in the house, especially you guys.
Mhm.
So it's really fun sitting in that theater.
I
You
know.
only get to do it when you're teching a show, so it's nice to be an audience there. Um,
It's so much bigger than you think that how. Like when you're on stage, it doesn't seem that big, but you sit in the back row,
no.
you're in a different zip code than the actors.
Exactly. And I remember Lynn Meadows, she was our director, and she would sit in the very back row. She's like, it's like sort of camouflaged. Like, I need to make sure that you're reaching me back here.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
like, I'm not? Like, that's so crazy. She's like, no, it's a much bigger theater.
I
And
know.
I'm like, okay. Thanks for telling me, Lynn. Um,
Okay.
okay. Can you hear me now? No, really one of the greatest places to work. Tell me a little bit about if you look back and go, and you're going to have a lot of lucky breaks along the way. But like, I think if I had to pinpoint a moment, like there's the teacher in high school who's like, actually, I think you should go do this. And you listened because there was nothing at the time that was competing with that, that was bigger and better, maybe. Um, what do you think was like the lucky break? Because a lot of you graduated in 2019 and you've
Mhm.
had a lot of stuff happen.
Yeah. Um, I've never been like a subscriber to the concept of like a big break because I think there and you would agree with this. I feel like there's so much that people don't know that you're doing. There's so much work that begets
Yeah.
work that leads to the quote unquote big break. But it's like there were a lot of little breaks that happened before there. So to be honest, for me, I really was out of school a big subscriber to the concept of like work begets work. So I really was just like, I'm any opportunity I have, I'm gonna do the best I can and try to do it. Like I was starting out doing like one line co-stars on shows, just being like, you know what, if I do a good job here, it'll do that. And in subscribing to that, there were times I would do that, and then they'd be like, let's bring this person back, let's keep them in the conversation. Da 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 da. I'll do whatever workshop that comes up, and I think that is kind of the thing that. And I'm not hot shit, Yana. I'm just another working actor in New York who's trying to do the best that he can. Um, and I really do think it's just like the little things. It's the little known facts that get you
Yeah.
through, that get you to the quote unquote big breaks. Like, yes, there were like quote unquote big jobs that had like big whatever, press or whatever the fuck
Noise
around it.
around it. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's just noise, and the job is the same as the little job that you did before then. And in your brain, it's the last job you're gonna have.
Yeah. That's a great feeling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a
I love
great
that.
but a torturous feeling.
The last one. Great. I know there's nothing else like that. It's a very strange, I mean, talk about back to one, right? Like
Yeah,
every
yeah.
back to one. Okay. I know that you have a heavy load in this play, and I want to make sure that you are rested and get to do whatever you need to do for do you have any like superstitions or pre-show rituals where you're like, oh my God, the feather isn't on my desk, the show's not gonna, or are you superstitious at all?
Not really, to be honest. No, I've always been I can kind of hop in, which is good with these things. But what I've learned about myself is sometimes there's that voice inside your brain that's like, oh, I should be doing this. Like I should, in order to be ready for the play, I'm in this space where like I said, I'm hyper, I'm energized right now, but I really should be centering myself. I should be doing that. And I've learned to ignore that voice. I think I've learned to kind of be whatever you're feeling, wherever you're at is the right space. Because that's where that sense of play and curiosity is going to come out of. You know what I mean? I think the second I try to police myself, I always fuck myself over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I try to explain to people it's like 2 inches from off stage to on stage. It's like
Hmm.
literally you take one step
Yeah.
and what happens to your body, it's really kind of inexplicable,
Hmm.
because it has nothing to do with like distance. It's
Hmm.
just an inch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but to make yourself cross over, like just the number of times I've stood there going, why would I possibly?
Hey, why would I go there?
Why,
I
why
could
would
I could
I
have a
walk
coffee
that route?
outside. Yeah.
Why didn't I just turn around? All right. Well, this is thrilling. I can't wait to kind of see all the things that come up and that I get to see you in on my screen, on stage. And I had a sense when I was watching you that it would be incredibly fun to get to talk to you about you.
Thank
And
you.
it has been like totally thrilling. And thank you for listening to the podcast. It's so great to meet you and
It's
know
crazy.
that
Yeah.
I'll
Thank
think
you so
about it.
much. Yeah.
I'm glad that they've brought you something. That makes me so happy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, thank you. So, and I can't even tell you like how surreal and wild this is. And like, thank you for your podcast. Like, you've gotten me through so many just crazy moments where I'm like evaluating my life, evaluating my career and everything, and just hearing you talk, and especially hearing you talk to like people you've worked with in the past, and just kind of seeing how everyone's lives go in different ways, and how everything finds its own way has really been inspirational. Your podcast has been a saving grace for me. I really mean that.
Oh my God, I'm so glad. Well, your performance in Dakar 2000 is extraordinary, and I hope people will go see it. And I'm sure it's the kind of play that even if you don't get to see my guest today and Mia's production, it will be a play that will be housed in many theaters across the country and around the globe. It's a really intensely beautiful play about about survival and about love and about trying to do good in the world, and not only trying to do good, but making mistakes along the way, right?
Mhm.
And anyway, I don't want to spoiler alert the play. Before I let you go,
Mhm.
is there a little known fact that you can share?
Oh God, a little known fact. I'm an unwell person, and I made the wild decision to move while I was in previews a few weeks ago. That is a little known fact to me. I am a survivor of being in previews for 8 shows a week and moving at the same time.
Two of the most traumatic human experiences I can
Trauma
ever.
across the board. I mean, I moved in the morning. I got done with the move, went straight to rehearsal, then did a show that night.
You're like, sorry, I'm a little sweaty, you guys. Just
Yeah,
moved.
yeah. I just moved, or I'm nervous. You'll never know. You'll never
You'll
know
never
which
know
one's
the
which.
difference.
Yeah, yeah.
Congrats on this beautiful performance.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the show tonight, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Truly, thank you so much. It means a lot to me.
All right, be well. Bye,
Thank
sweetheart.
you.
Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.